have to tell you, we do have two political strategists live with us in the studio tonight. On the Democratic side, we have Andrew Acosta, and for Republicans, we have Tamika Hamilton. I want to say thank you for joining us, and we got to start by addressing the bee that was not in the room, right? A lot of people have been
George
talking.
Bush.
George Bush. Seriously, on Twitter, George Bush had been trending for a while.
Right.
On Twitter, Beyonce had been trending for a while.
And then some folks thought it was going to be Taylor Swift, too. Yeah.
None of that.
None
This
of
was
the above.
about Kamala Harris tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I think if they had a big superstar surprise guest, it might have taken some of the limelight off somebody who clearly needed this moment to make sure voters had a better understanding of who she is and what she stands for. I mean, she talked about it. It's an unlikely journey, and again, 2 months ago, she was going to be a vice president on a tough presidential race, and now she's the nominee.
Mm-hmm. What did you think?
So I thought it would have been, adding to the party, giving the donors and the delegates there, their money's worth for coming out there, and also drumming up, just more support for her. But, leaning on what he said, it would have taken away from her speech, and people would have forgotten that she even said anything, for sure.
Because here's the deal. Kamala Harris just made history as the first black woman and first South Asian American to accept a major party's nomination for president. So talk about perhaps your top 2 or 3 moments from the night.
For me, it was a great speech, a lot of energy, but at the same time, I felt extremely gaslit because our country is going through so much. Yes, it's fine to talk about optimism and moving our country forward, but also what are Americans dealing with right now? And, in terms of her leadership and what she's going to bring to the table, all you got to do is look to what's happening here in California, where she's come from.
So what do you say as a Democrat here at the table?
So I was able to see when Kamala Harris kicked off her presidential campaign in Oakland, 2019 or when that was, 22,000 people were there. I learned a little bit more about her today. I obviously followed her career, but I did learn a little bit more about her today. Her focus on law and order and for the people versus Donald Trump was a good contrast. But with Tamika's point, I mean, the theme of the night was focused on the future, and I do feel like there was a little bit of the past and Trump that wasn't too much, but I was hoping that I'd hear a little bit more about what the rest of the future looked like for America.
And did you hear enough policy?
No.
Do you think people want to hear policy at these type of events?
I think in order for her to win over independents and Republicans, they're going to need to know more about her policy. As of today, if we could go look up her website, it's still a splash page with a donation link. There's policy that's not on, no policies on that website.
What we did learn is, you had a survivor of sex trafficking that was freed because of what Kamala Harris did. So there is some pieces of her resume that are starting to punch through. We did hear a lot about, sort of law enforcement and some of the work she's done, which I think most people don't know much about her. Maybe if you're here in California, you know some of it, but the vast majority of Americans don't know what she has done for a living besides be the vice president. So I think part of that has to come through, and I think there's plenty of time to flush out some of the other pieces on what the agenda looks like and the plan and the website. But tonight is, I think, a good opportunity for her to say, this is who I am.
And then you had Republicans who spoke tonight and all this week about putting country over party first. Do you feel that was effective?
I think they tried really hard to make that a solid point for, again, their moving forward message. But at the end of the day, people want to hear about what their current issues are and how she's going to fix it. And so again, she's going to have to make the case for, the other side. Like we talked about earlier, she's not battle tested from California, so she's going to have to talk about policy.
She made the case that she was battle tested, though, talking about what she has done, not just here in California, but also as vice president.
Sure, and in her first race for Attorney General, it was a close race, and she almost lost. I went back and looked. The LA Times didn't endorse her when she ran the first time. A lot of these papers were not really sure about her, but she came through and she did a good job, and now she's moved on. And I think, but as we talk about here in California, we don't often, as Democrats, talk to Republicans or independent voters because we don't need to. She's going to have to. and,
Right.
and in a more forceful way than having Adam Kinzinger out there doing it as an anti-Trumper.
I did notice, though, that Meghan McCain tweeted, maybe Republicans just should not have conventions, just forfeit, because I don't know how you compete with this convention, she said. So the question is, how much do these conventions matter? Has the outlook changed, really, for either campaign?
I don't know if this is going to move the needle, but as far as what Meghan McCain said, who I adore, she's right. It's like, it's a party, it's rallying the troops, it's getting people to, come and support from their individual states and going back and sending a message to their districts. So I think from a production standpoint, they did really well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to it. The amount of money she's raised, I think the amount of voters who have now come and said, I want to volunteer in the campaign, those are all things that matter. And Congressman Pete Aguilar came out and said, hey, don't go to Nevada and walk precincts, go to Bakersfield or Stockton, the places that we have contested races. And I think that's the next thing that has to happen, is organizing in these places that we have a president that wins, but we also win the House back and win the Senate races that are going to be tough.
I always ask this question, what grade would you give her speech tonight? I got 30 seconds.
I think she did really well, but again, she's got to talk more about policy.
What grade was that? It's hard for the Republican to say it.
It's so hard. She did her speech. The speech went well, but again, policy, talking about the issues that are affecting Americans, that's what needs to happen.
B plus.
B plus.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. It wasn't, Bill Clinton in his prime or Barack Obama in his prime, but it was good. I think it was a good first stop for her.
Well, Andrew Acosta and Tamika Hamilton, you did it in 31 seconds. Thank you so very much for joining us tonight. Our coverage is really just getting started.